It's time for CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, YouTube, and TuneIn. The easiest thing to do is tell Alexa or Siri to play CBJ in 30. Here's your host, Bob McElligott.
This is a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJ in 30. It is presented by Telhio Credit Union. My favorite day of the week. And whoever says that about Mondays, right? Just people that aren't in their right mind is usually the type of people that are saying that. But the reason it's my favorite day, and it's always my favorite day during the season because I get to hear from you, I get to answer your questions, and you make me think. And I know you're going to make me think today. I know that. Before we even get started with this, I know you're going to make me think. And I appreciate that challenge, especially now. I mean, I'm coming off a weekend. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't stimulate my brain all that much this weekend, so I'm looking for a challenge. I'm looking for you to give me some questions that make me think and that I'm able to give you a good answer to, because that's what this is all about. But that's why I like this show. I like doing this on Mondays. I like hearing from you. Yeah, it's a heck of a lot easier to do when the Blue Jackets are playing games. It's a heck of a lot easier to do when we're speculating about trades, about free agents, about playoff possibilities, all of that stuff. And we can still do a little bit of that. There's no question about it. But the fact of the matter is we're still in this NHL pause right now, waiting for news. News is very slow in coming. And the reason it's slow in coming is because everything is slow in our country right now. Everything is almost ground to a halt, and especially here in the state of Ohio. Now, basically yesterday, the stay-at-home order comes out. They don't want you really going anywhere unless you have to go to the store and to the pharmacy. I get it. I understand. It's all about being safe. It's frustrating. For me, it's frustrating because I'm an active person. I like to get out and do things and go places. But it is what it is. It's all about being safe. It's all about everybody doing their part. And so that's the way it is. Hey, look, the weather's starting to get nicer some days. Some days there was a warm day here over the weekend. The weather's getting nicer. You can start to go outside. You can start to walk. You can start to ride your bike. And then eventually we'll get back into a normal way of life and hopefully get all the sports back. The NHL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, all of that. So, again, it's all about us doing our part until we get to that point. And my part today, again, is to answer your questions because it's Monday, so I want to get right to it. But first, I've got to tell you about Telhio Credit Union. Now, these people, they take care of your money, and they do it in very special ways. I mean, they've got different things for you that maybe you don't even know about. I've told you about them for a long time. I've told you to go to their website at telhio.org and find out about all the different services that they have. As basic as getting a checking account, getting a savings account, whether it's for you, whether it's for your small business, whatever the case may be. They've got all of these services. They are a credit union. What's the benefit of joining a credit union? The answers are right there at telhio.org. If you can't find the answers, they have a live chat option that you can go to. They also, as we are all inside and the businesses are all back down because of this coronavirus that we're all dealing with right now, there are some special instructions that they have. So you can find all the information on their website, telhio.org. I invite you to go there and check it out. It's very important. And maybe when you come out of this and all of a sudden the money's rolling again, you want to make sure that you have it in the right place. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in Central and Southwestern Ohio. They are federally insured by NCUA. All right, let's get to the questions, and here's the first one.
Hey, Bob. This is Josh in Grove City, Ohio. First off, I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to put out some great content for us through the podcast through this time. I actually really enjoyed the Monday Mailbag edition last week. I wasn't sure what exactly you were going to have to talk about, but I found that one to be very entertaining. Really enjoyed hearing from your son and getting some lowdown on sticks. I had no idea what was involved with hockey sticks because I don't play myself, so that was really cool. Really enjoyed the last Inside Edge you had with the guest you had on there as well. So my question for you, as we're right in this time of quarantine, is if you had to be quarantined with one player from the Jackets, which player would it be? I would imagine if it was somebody in the organization, you might choose Jody Shelley because he seems like a cool dude you could hang out with all the time. But from a player perspective, which player would you choose to be quarantined 24/7 with for maybe weeks on end. All right. Thanks, Bob.
Well, Josh, I guess we're just going to fire right out of the gate here today, huh? I knew you guys were going to make me think, and this one does. This is a really tricky question. Oh, by the way, before I answer it, thanks for the compliments about last week. I'll make sure my son Matthew knows that you appreciated his breakdown of hockey sticks and baseball bats, which I thought he did a great job of. I got to figure out more ways to get him involved. I mean, he's here, and he needs something to do. So maybe next week, if you have a question you want to hear him answer, even whatever it is, maybe I can talk him into it, a.k.a. make him do it. But anyway, thanks for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, this one takes a lot of thought. And as I'm listening to you ask it, I started going through the roster in my head. And there are so many possibilities because there are so many guys, right? But here's the thing. I'm at a point in my career where I am much older than most of these players. So that changes things a little bit. Would I want to be quarantined with an 18-year-old? Probably not. I'm already quarantined with an 18-year-old in my house. So that's difficult, right? So it's very easy. And, oh, by the way, you were right when you said if I could pick somebody in the organization, it would probably be Jody Shelley, although I can make the argument that we're quarantined most of the time when we travel anyway. We spend that much time around each other, so maybe it would be good to take a break. But, yeah, as I go through and I think about this, now the first guy that jumps to my mind is Nick Foligno. He's one of the older guys. He's, of course, as you know, he's very personable. He has a family. There are things that we could talk about, and we would have similarities, right? I've already been through a lot of those things with the family. His kids are younger, so, we could relate, and I could, I could try to prepare him for what's coming in the future that he hasn't even seen or thought of yet. And I'm sure there are a lot of things he could teach me as well. So it's easy to go that route, but I don't want to take the easy route with you today because I want to think about it a little bit further through because there are other guys that would be fun in their own ways. Riley Nash would be an interesting guy because Riley he's got a sly type of a sense of humor, right? Very smart guy, went to Cornell, so maybe he's too smart for me. I mean, maybe I would get on his nerves being around for weeks on end under quarantine, but he's a fun kind of guy. David Savard he's not under the radar anymore. I was about to say he's under the radar, but you guys have started to see his personality on video and the little things that he does in the room or in the hallway, things that have been captured, things that he is allowed to be captured about himself. He doesn't really come out, and he's not a boisterous guy is what I'm trying to say. He's louder on the ice than he is in real life in many ways. On the ice, you always hear him because he's just doing his job. He's hitting guys, blocking shots, all that. You can't miss him. Off the ice, he can kind of slip in through the shadows sometimes. But David would be a fun guy to hang out with. That would definitely be somebody that would be on my list. Jonas Korpisalo, here's a guy that is really, when you talk about under the radar, he's got the very dry Finnish sense of humor. And I really like him. I mean, he's fun. He's a lot funnier than you might think until you get to talk to him. Marcus Nunavara is the same way. They've got that same type of personality. But Korpisalo being a goalie, my son being a goalie, there's some things. We do have some, I was going to say we have some goalie conversations from time to time. They're not really goalie conversations like I can't do it. I can talk to him about it, and I can relay the things that my son has asked me to ask him, or I can, ask him questions based on what I see my son doing and how I can help him, those kind of things. So it's not a goalie to goalie, but I understand the position a little bit more. So that would be fun. But again, he's such a cool guy. He's so fun to hang with. So I've just put a number of guys on the list, and there are a number of more that I could put on the list. But let's think about this really logically, okay? We're talking about being in quarantine. We're not talking about spending a weekend together. We're not talking about going on vacation for a week. We're talking about being locked down in quarantine, where it's going to be day after day after day. Now, what is one of the most important things that you're looking forward to doing while in quarantine? It's what are you going to eat, right? I mean, I've gone to the store as many times as I could. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, when that stay-at-home order was issued that starts tonight, the first thing I did is I thought, well, there's going to be even more of a run on milk, so I'm going to go get it. Let's make sure that I have enough canned goods for this. What can I have for dinner tomorrow, the next day? And I'm normally not like that. I'm normally a go to the store every day kind of a guy because I pass it 2 times a day anyway. So I'll be like, I don't need to worry about what I'm having tomorrow until tomorrow because I'm going right by there. I'll just stop and get it. So this has been a big change for me, right? So this has been a big focus of what I'm doing while I'm cooped up here. So I'm telling you this for a reason. So if you factor the food into it, and not only do you want to eat, but you want to eat well. So who is somebody that is probably going to eat well and is probably going to cook a good meal? And there's probably a number of guys on the list that can and would do that. But there's one guy I know is, he's pretty talented in this area, and that's Seth Jones. And not only that, but Seth Jones is just, I think he is just one of the ultimate athletes. And what I mean is he's an athlete who is one of the best at his position in his sport, but he's also just a good, down-to-earth guy. He's just he's a regular guy out of uniform. Not quite. I mean, he's tall, he's athletic. You can tell he's an athlete, right? But just to sit and have a conversation and a laugh and all of those things, all those check marks are there, and then you know you're going to eat well. So I'm going to pick Seth Jones because, not worried about I don't want to open a can of Spam unless that's all that is left. And I feel confident if I was stuck with Seth that somehow we're going to get better stuff than that, and he's going to prepare some great meals. And I'll do my part. I think he can outcook me in a minute, but maybe not. I mean, I've come a long way here. I've got an air fryer now, got a Instapot now. I mean, I'm looking for new ways to do things and do them faster and do them, I guess, healthier. Yes, of course. So, it's not that I can't chip in or wouldn't chip in, but look, let's just be honest about it. Somebody you can talk to, have a good time, and you're going to eat well. That's why I'm picking Seth Jones. But thank you for the question. See, it made me think. I literally started going down the roster, and I'm like, well, geez, this is and again, if I go with Nick Foligno, it's easy, right? But you got to think deeper. You just have to think deeper sometimes. No question about that. All right, let's go to Twitter, at Bobby Mac Sports. Last week, there's some questions that I didn't get to, and I promised I would this week, so I want to go there right now. And here's a hockey thing. Let's go with a couple of hockey things. It is a hockey show. And so, anyway, Joker Smoker 311 says, so what is going to happen with the season and the Cup and the draft July 1st and all of that? Well, I should have said that slower. What's going to happen with the season and the Cup and the draft and July 1st? This could all be messed up. All right, so that's one thing. Here's another, just staying on the same pseudo theme. Chris Denman. I've seen a few ideas on social media of how to cover the remaining games in the playoffs once the league resumes play. One idea involves going straight to the playoffs with 24 teams instead of 16 and playing 3-game series. What do you think of that idea and any others that you have heard? So I'm going to lump these two together because there has been a lot of speculation, none of it coming out of the league. The league has just said that everything is on the table. So I don't know, Chris, what's going to happen with all of this. For both of these questions, I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to shake out by any means. But I'm going to tell you this. When it comes to playoff scenarios, I don't care what they do as long as the Blue Jackets are involved in it. I don't. Whatever they do. If they cut it off where it is right now and the Blue Jackets are in, I'm good with that. If they expand it and the Blue Jackets are in, I'm good with that. It doesn't matter to me. But again, the league's not saying anything about it. There is no speculation. When I say it's okay with me, that's what I mean. It's okay with me, and I'm speaking of me because there's no team and there's nobody in the league that is saying anything beyond that, and that's why it's all up in the air. And it's not even worth talking about. I mean, for the national people, the guys on TSN and Rogers Sportsnet and NHL Radio and the NHL Network, sure, absolutely, because you're still trying to drive content and you're trying to drive programming. So, yeah, they're going to talk about that, of course, and they're going to have their opinions and all that stuff, but that's all it is. It's opinions, and maybe some of them are more informed opinions because some of them are insiders, and they have some people that are I know they have people, but those people probably aren't telling them anything yet because nobody knows. Like, when is it going to be able to come back? Or when this window is over, the CDC window that was imposed, which would be in like the second week of May, can you come back then? See, nobody knows because things are fluid and things are changing, so nobody really knows. As we get closer, and this is what I plan on doing, so as we get closer to middle of April, end of April, and again, we'll see how things are going with this virus. We'll see what's going on with the weather, if it's getting warmer, if that's having an effect, all this stuff. But as we go on, then I'm going to pay more attention to these guys, especially the ones that are connected, because then when they start saying some things, I would think that they're going to have a little bit of inside information so that they can talk a little bit more eloquently about the different scenarios. But right now, it's we could sit here and speculate on it, and we could talk about, this scenario, that scenario, but the fact of the matter is we'd have that same conversation every week with the same answers, which are none right now. So I'm not trying to blow you off by any means. I'm just being honest with you that nobody knows what it's going to look like when it comes back and how it's going to go and all those things. So we'll see. We'll see. Kevin Bailey. I love this question from Kevin. Is there anything strange about any of the press boxes that we don't know? Or maybe something strange about one of the arenas in the American Hockey League that you called games in? All right. Strange things about the press boxes. Now, in the NHL, most of them now are almost identical, to be honest with you. Many of these new arenas have set it up the same way, and I'm going to be honest with you here, too. I hate the way that they're set up in many of these new arenas, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a two-tiered press box. That's fine, but they've got, the way it's set up, you've got the press, the writing press. They are on a lower level than the broadcast press, okay? And they don't have a booth. They're on a just wide open area. And then behind them and above them is where the booths are set up. Now, that probably sounds fine, and for the most part, it is. But here's the thing. There are a couple of different things. Number one, not that I care, but I know they can hear everything I'm saying when I'm doing the game. Fine. But the other thing is, in many of these buildings, and I'll tell you exactly the ones off the top of my head that bother me. Pittsburgh, Arizona, Minnesota, what else? New Jersey. They're all set up the same way now. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of teams have set them up the same way. And one of the biggest things that is a pain is when people are standing on that level below me and play is going on. Now, to them, there's nobody behind them. I mean, there's nobody directly behind them. It's not like there's a seat directly behind them because I'm up higher. The problem is their head is in my line of vision. Their head is in the way. Maybe I'm trying to look down to my left. I forget where we were. Might have been Toronto, where I couldn't see anything going on in the corner down to my left because somebody was standing beneath me. And when you don't know that person, you don't shut your microphone off and tell them to sit down, scream at them to sit down. You'd like to. You want to. Sidebar story. When I was first getting into this business, and I worked at the radio station back in my hometown of Somerset, Pennsylvania, we did high school sports, and I did a lot of high school football. And the guy that I worked with, God rest his soul, he taught me so much about this business and about how to do different sports. And, at that time, we're we're driving around. He had the cell phone that we had. Well, it started where we couldn't do games. There were no cell phones when I first started. So every game you did, you had to have a phone line. And that might mean that you had to go to a payphone that was in the hallway outside the gymnasium to do a basketball game. You had to take the payphone off the hook, and you had to hook into it and put an out-of-order sign on it and run the phone line all the way into the gym, and that might have been 50 or 100 feet just so that you could use a phone line. To do the football games, you had to have a phone line installed in every stadium that you were going to be broadcasting out of. So it was a pain. And then when it got to cell phones, it was the old bag phone. Remember those? Many of you do, some don't. I mean, it was huge. The thing came in a bag, but we had a piece of equipment we could hook it to and do the games. So he was in charge of the technical aspect. He was the equipment guy. He took care of all that stuff. Pretty much he gave me the information. I had to study the information, be prepared when I showed up and did the game. But to get to what I'm talking about with not being able to see, when we would be doing football, let's say it's a Friday night and it starts to rain. And, of course, the people sitting in front of the press box put up an umbrella. And so many times, depending upon the height of the press box, it would be right in our line of vision. And I remember times, and I used to cringe because he didn't care where we were. He didn't care who it was. He didn't know who it was and didn't care. It didn't matter. But that was in his way. And he would reach out and bang on that umbrella and tell that person to put it down. We're trying to do the game. And, the looks that we got. And, oh, my goodness. And I can't believe he never got punched in the mouth for doing it. But he didn't. And that's a good thing. But anyway, that's what it makes me think of whenever somebody stands up and they're blocking my line of vision. First thing is I get agitated. Second thing is I think of him reaching out and hitting those umbrellas, and I usually start to laugh when it's all said and done. So the best press boxes in the league are the suspended gondolas. So if you go Detroit, if you've been to the new stadium in Detroit, they have one now. Some people complain about Detroit. I don't know about where the press box is because it's higher than it was at the Joe. First of all, at the Joe, they didn't even have a press box. Here's a good story for you. This is an interesting thing about a press box that never existed in a building that's no longer there. At Joe Louis Arena, they didn't have a press box. You were just basically at the top of the stands, and then they had a counter with bar stool chairs at it. And we would have to walk down there, and then there were like these individual, they weren't booths because it was open. I mean, it was an area where you had your own counter and you had a divider on either side, but people would walk behind you the entire time. And so you're doing the game, and people are coming back and forth, and they're bumping into your chair, or if you're standing, sometimes they're bumping into you because they're trying to pass somebody else behind you. So that was unique in its own right. It was a pain, and it was unique, all in its own right. But now they've got it where the press area and the suites actually hang out over the stands. So when you're up there, you're kind of looking right down on the ice. I don't mind it. It's a little bit further away than some of the other buildings, but I don't care. It's way better than what we had there before, so you will not hear me complain about that. Montreal is like that. It's great. It hangs out over the stands. Most of the Canadian buildings are like that. Calgary's like that. I don't ever know if you've seen the videos that I've taken in the past about walking across the catwalk and going around the scoreboard. That's unique. Now, there's a way that I could be downstairs and I could walk to the other side of the building and take steps or an elevator and get up there, but the elevator that's right by the dressing room, the quickest way upstairs, where it leaves you off, you go up into the press box, which again is suspended and hangs out over the stands, but there are two sides, and I'm on the opposite side. So you walk on this catwalk literally out over the ice and around the scoreboard and then go to the other side. And it's frightening. I mean, I've done it for 10 years. I'm a little bit more used to it, but not really. It all depends on the day, and I'm clinging for dear life when I get out there, believe me, when I'm going around that scoreboard. Because you can look right down. Look right down on the ice from there. Look right down through the middle of that scoreboard. But Calgary suspended like that. Vancouver is nice. It's suspended like that. Edmonton used to be. It's not any longer. That one's fallen to near the bottom of the list on the press boxes. But so that's a story about the press boxes. Many are the same, but the ones that are suspended out over out over the seats are the best ones because you're closer. You're looking right down on the action. You're hanging out there. Nassau Coliseum, it's not really a press box. It's like you're jammed in there. I hate going there because I get in there. I'm sitting in a row, and there's no room. It's wide open, and my engineer that runs the controls, he's sitting on the end, and I'm in there next to him, and I'm pretty much in there. Once I'm in there, I'm in there. If I want to get out, I'm hoping that he gets out because then I can go. During the intermission, if we have no live guests and he moves, then I can get out of there. I can go get a drink or whatever. But the sight lines are great. Sight lines are awesome. The rest of it is not. Even with all the money they put in that building, they didn't change that, believe me. So anyway, that's the story on the press boxes. Now, to answer the second part of the question, in the American Hockey League, the strangest building was the one I worked in every day in Syracuse because it was an old building, was built in the 50s. I think it was built in the 50s. It was an old war memorial. But the thing that was unique about it was it had a concrete half-barrel roof. And it was great for holding the sound in. I mean, you put 6,000 people in there, it would sound like 16 or 18,000 because it held all the sound in. And that sound went up there and it just rolled around that concrete roof and it came right back down on you. So that was great. And it was great home ice. I mean, the boards gave way and they were loud. So when somebody would hit the boards, it was really loud. Talk to any player that played there, not just in the league and played in that building, and they will tell you that about the glass, how when you'd hit the glass, it would really have a big sound, and would from the home crowd, it would really get them going every time. But the other thing about it was because of that curved roof in the quote-unquote press area, you had to, you literally walked up almost a ladder to get up there. But as you walked along, the steel beams went up for the roof, and you had to walk, leaned over. Like when I was going in, I had to lean to my right, or I'd crack my head off one of these concrete pillars. And there was a great chance of getting your suit snagged on something and tearing it. But you had to walk like that. If you forgot what you were doing, you weren't paying attention, or were looking behind you to say hi to somebody, you're going to crack your head open. And I saw it happen before, too. I literally did see somebody do that. Now, fortunately, where I was, when you got to the middle of the building, right above the press boxes, you went down into this pit where you could actually stand. You could stand up with no problem. I was the only one down there. We put the visiting broadcaster. He was still up there where you couldn't stand up or you'd be hitting your head. And he, we made it very uncomfortable for them because they were the visitors. And that's the way it should be. As a matter of fact, I had a couple of guys that tried to get down in that area where I was next to me, and I threw them out. I just threw them out. One guy wasn't there. He had all his stuff set up there. He never asked me. So I went up there. I just calmly unhooked all of his stuff, put it up where it should have been, and rehooked it all back up again. Because you didn't ask me. You had no permission, so forget about it. You're not going to sit down there right next to me when we're both trying to do the same game from different viewpoints, if you will. So that was, I feel very safe in saying that was the strangest building in the American Hockey League. All right, got a couple more here before we're done today. And first one, Matthew Bailey. Binge watch TV shows or conquer any home improvement projects this past week? No, it's been more binge watching than the improvement projects. Look, I've thought about it. I'm trying to get myself motivated, and now I don't even know if I can go out to any home improvement store and get paint. I don't know if they fall under a category where they've got to close or they can still be open for, if they have a waiver or whatever. So I better find that out quickly. Better find that out because there's some things that I've got to get myself motivated to do, that we've got to get done. I've got a bunch of furniture out in the garage that I got from my grandmother's that needs to come in here, but there are things that need to be done before that furniture comes in here, and I've been dragging my feet for a week. It's time to get going on that. So this week it has been more binge watching, but it needs to move on to that next phase because it looks like we're in for a long haul here. So I can't just, maybe last week and a half ago, I'm putting it off thinking, well, maybe this won't be so long, and I can just put it off and binge watch a little bit and go right back to work. But now it looks like it might last a little bit longer than I had hoped and anticipated. Now, I've got one more, and I've been saving this one for last. And I've been saving it for last for a very good reason. And here's the question. This question comes from Barrick Nichols. What is the funniest name that you ever got to say? And it can be baseball or hockey. Well, I'll tell you. There's so many names. There are names that I enjoyed saying, and then there were names that really fit your category more as far as, the funniest names that I've ever got to say. I'm going to start in baseball. In baseball, of all the years I was in it, the name that stands out is Richard Keith Clapp. Now, you're going to say to me, well, why would that stand out? I'll tell you why. Because he didn't go by Richard or Keith. His name was Stubby Clapp. Not only was he known as Stubby Clapp, but he was Stubby Clapp the Third. True story. Absolutely true story. Canadian boy, and he was a great ball player. He really was. He played for Team Canada, but when I saw him and when I worked with him, he was in the Toronto Blue Jays system. Just a great guy. Hockey player playing baseball. That's what he was. Small guy, left-handed slap hitter, outfielder, run through a wall for you. Everybody would want to have him on their team. And he went on to, after he was done playing, he managed in the minor leagues. I saw him a couple of years ago here when they had the AAA National Championship game at Huntington Park. He was managing the Memphis Redbirds, and they won the AAA championship. We had a preseason game, and my son was working the national championship game. He's a bad boy, so he was working. I went over after our game because we had a quick game, preseason. Everybody just got through it, no penalties, whatever. And I went over there for the end of the game, and I got to see Stubby, and I got to congratulate him, and I hadn't seen him in many, many years, so it was good to see him. But Stubby Clapp the Third. So baseball-wise, that's what I'm going with. And in hockey, this was a no-brainer. This one popped into my head immediately. And I saw him in Cincinnati with the Mighty Ducks, and I believe I saw him again in Binghamton with the Senators. And the player's name, Corey Pecker. And it was so much fun every time I did a game that he was playing in. Let me just say that I could make my engineer back at the station. We would go to a commercial break, and he would laugh. He would come on in my ear laughing because he's like, I can't believe what you're saying. I was just calling the game, right? Just calling the game. But there's so many ways to call the game, and Corey Pecker gets stood up at the blue line and all those things. So they always enjoyed that. My engineers enjoyed that. Yeah, I saw him in Cincinnati. I saw him in Binghamton. 2 stops along the way in the American Hockey League. So those are the 2 names, one from each sport. So I know it was only asked for one, but you gave me 2 sports. So since I had 2, I went ahead and gave you both. All right. So another Monday mailbag edition of CBJ and 30, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union, is now in the books. And in case you haven't figured it out, let's take this time. Look, I don't mind talking hockey with you at all. Not at all. But, again, these playoff possibilities and when the season restarts and all that stuff, we don't know. Who knows? So if you want to ask me more questions like we talked about with the press boxes and the funny names and the who you want to be quarantined with, I welcome that. I love that. Let's have fun with this because for the last couple of weeks, many of us haven't been having much fun. And that's what this is. That's what we do this for. That's what I do this for. Look, doing this job is an escape from real life. Now, real life has trampled on that here in the last couple of weeks, but that doesn't mean that we can't laugh, that we can't have a good time, that we can't talk about hockey or about anything. So keep that in mind when we get together to do this again next week. I want to remind you that Jody Shelley and I are scheduled to do another Inside Edge coming up this Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on the flagship station of the Blue Jackets Radio Network, 97.1 The Fan in Columbus. You can also get it via the live stream on the Blue Jackets app or at bluejackets.com. So we'll have that for you. We'll post it as a podcast immediately after the show, and it'll be there for you after that. So something you can plan on for just a couple of days. But again, as we get to next week, let's think of some fun things. Let's talk about some fun things. Let's enjoy this as much as we can as we go along here, being safe and keeping others safe for the next couple of weeks. That's going to do it for CBJ in 30, presented by Tel Ohio Credit Union. Till next time, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.